Have you ever looked at your life and thought, I know I'm capable of more, so why am I still stuck? Here, it's a haunting question, isn't it? You wake up, go through the motions, chase goals, fight through struggles, and yet somewhere deep inside, there's this quiet whisper. There's a giant inside you waiting to be awakened. Tony Robbins believes that giant is real, and he argues that it isn't about luck, talent, or circumstances, it's about decisions, emotions, beliefs, the rules you live by, the money you manage, the love you give and receive, the purpose you discover. Most people sleepwalk through these parts of life. They let emotions control them, let limiting beliefs cage them, let money master them, let relationships drift, and let purpose slip away. And because of that, they never experience the life they were meant to live. But what if change didn't have to be slow? What if transformation wasn't something that took years but could begin today, the moment you made a single clear decision? Robbins calls this book Awaken the Giant Within because he believes every one of us carries inside a massive untapped force, strength, courage, clarity, and love that can reshape our destiny. The problem isn't that the giant doesn't exist, the problem is that we've lulled it to sleep. And now the question is simple: will you keep pressing snooze or will you wake it up? This book isn't just theory, it's a roadmap. Each chapter shows you how to take control where it matters most: your mind, your heart, your habits, your money, your relationships, and your purpose. You'll learn why decisions are destiny, how to command your emotions instead of being a prisoner of them, how to smash the beliefs that keep you small, how to rewire habits at the deepest level, how to turn money into freedom instead of fear, how to create love that lasts, and how to live every day with meaning. It's not a gentle book, it's a challenge, a wake-up call, a mirror that asks you to stop waiting, stop wishing, stop drifting, and start deciding today to take back your life. So if you've ever felt there's more in you than the life you're living, you're right. There is. The giant is waiting, and the time to awaken it is now. Welcome to Mind Spark, where great books meet powerful ideas. Chapter 1. The Power of Decision. There comes a moment in everyone's life when they realize that the direction they are heading isn't fixed. It isn't predetermined by the stars or by luck or by the family they were born into. It is shaped more than anything else by the decisions they make. And this is where Tony Robbins begins his journey in Awaken the Giant Within. Imagine yourself standing at a crossroads. The road stretches out in 2, maybe 3, maybe even 10 different directions. You look down each one and they all seem possible. Some are easy, some are hard, some are familiar, others terrifying. But in that moment there's one truth that cannot be denied. Whichever road you choose to take, even if it's the one where you stand still, that choice will shape your life. This is the essence of Robbins' first lesson, the immense, undeniable power of decision. When Robbins speaks of decision, he isn't talking about the small things like what shirt you'll wear today or whether you'll order coffee or tea. He's talking about those decisions that, when made, become turning points. Think about the day you decided to apply for that job, or the day you said yes to a relationship, or the day you decided enough was enough and you would finally change. These are the moments where life bends, and here's what's striking. Robbins insists that every single person already has the power to make these decisions. We don't need permission, we don't need better circumstances, we don't need to wait for a perfect sign. The truth is, most people do wait, they delay, they hesitate, they get lost in the someday mentality. Someday I'll quit smoking, someday I'll start a business, someday I'll treat my body better. But as Robbins warns, someday is a disease that will take your dreams to the grave. I remember the first time I read this idea. It shook me because I thought of all the times I had postponed things that really mattered. How many times had I told myself I'd start next week? How many times had I whispered excuses like, I'll do it when I'm ready, only to realize readiness never arrives by itself? Robbins makes the case that in those moments when you decide, truly decide, you unleash a force inside you that is unstoppable. And decision for him isn't casual. He defines it as cutting yourself off from any other possibility. The word itself, if you trace its Latin roots, literally means to cut off. A true Decision is one where you no longer leave the back door open. There is no maybe, there is no we'll see. It is final. He gives countless examples from people who turned their lives around simply by making one solid, irrevocable choice, a person who decides to stop drinking after years of abuse, another who chooses to dedicate themselves fully to a passion they had ignored for decades. When the decision is real, Robbins says, the follow-through becomes inevitable. Think about it. How different would your life look today if you made one bold decision a year ago and actually followed through? What if you had decided to take that course, start that project, or walk away from that toxic situation? Where might you be standing right now? Robbins also challenges the myth that our past controls our future. Many of us think, well, I've always been this way, so I guess I'll always be this way. We let our habits and mistakes define us, but Robbins flips this on its head. The past only controls you if you let it. What really determines your future is not the mistakes you've made, but the decisions you make today. He tells us that history is filled with people who made life-altering decisions in moments of crisis. Nations are born from decisions, revolutions erupt from decisions, relationships heal or break because of decisions, and if you zoom in close enough, you'll see that behind every person you admire, behind every success story, there was a moment when they said, "This is it, no more. From today, things will be different." One of the most powerful things Robbins emphasizes here is the difference between decision and condition. Many people are waiting for their conditions to change. I'll feel happy once I get the promotion. I'll feel secure once I make more money. I'll get in shape once life slows down. But Robbins insists that conditions will never line up perfectly. You have to decide regardless of the conditions, because once you decide, you will start to change the conditions yourself. It's not about what resources you already have. It's about how resourceful you are willing to become. Once you've made a decision, now let's pause and reflect here. When I first applied Robbins' concept in my own life, it was about health. I had always struggled with exercise consistency. I would go to the gym for a week, then skip for 3. I would buy new running shoes, then let them gather dust, and I excused myself by saying I was too busy. One day after revisiting Robbins' book, I asked myself, what if I decided, what if I cut off the possibility of skipping? So I did. I decided I was a person who worked out daily, not someone trying, not someone attempting. I was, and that tiny mental shift changed everything. Suddenly I didn't bargain with myself. The decision had been made. It was done. That's the power Robbins is talking about, but he doesn't just leave us there. He explains why so many people fail to make real decisions. The truth is, we confuse preferences with decisions. Saying I'd like to lose weight is not a decision. Saying I will lose weight starting today and I will do whatever it takes, that is a decision. One is a wish, the other is a command. This is why Robbins presses so hard on the idea of clarity. If you are vague about what you want, you'll be vague your actions, but if you decide with crystal clarity, the path unfolds. Think of it this way: life is like a river. If you don't decide where to steer, the current will take you wherever it pleases. Sometimes you'll drift into calm waters, sometimes into rocks, but when you grab the wheel with both hands and say, "This is where I'm going," you start using the current to your advantage. This doesn't mean there won't be storms. Robbins never promises that, but he promises something more powerful. Storms cannot stop a person who has truly decided. They may bend, they may adjust the sails, but they will keep moving toward the destination because the decision is already made. There's a line Robbins repeats often in his seminars: it's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. And I think about how true that rings. When you look back on your life, what stands out? Is it the thousands of small forgettable choices? Or is it those few moments when you chose a path that changed everything? For some, it was the decision to quit a job and pursue a dream. For others, it was the decision to finally ask someone out or to walk away from a destructive relationship. For some, it was the day they decided, "I'm done being a victim. From now on, I'm in control." These are the pivots, these are the moments that build the architecture of your destiny. Robbins doesn't let the reader escape without action, he challenges us. Decide something now, not tomorrow, not next month, today. It doesn't have to be massive. It could be the decision to spend more time with your family. It could be the decision to stop procrastinating on one important task, but make it real, make it final, cut off every other possibility. Because here's the truth, if you don't decide, life will decide for you, and when life decides, it often won't be in your favor. I'll share one more reflection here. When I was younger, I thought freedom meant keeping all my options open. I resisted making big decisions because I thought they would trap me. But Robbins makes you realize the opposite is true. Real freedom comes when you decide, because only then do you stop being tossed around by indecision and chance. Only then do you direct your energy with power and purpose. When you decide, you stop wandering, you start creating. And so chapter 1 of Awaken the Giant Within leaves us with this undeniable truth. Your life is not a product of your conditions, it's a product of your decisions. If you want to change your life, change your decisions. The giant inside you isn't waiting for better circumstances, he's waiting for you to decide. Chapter 2, Mastering your emotions. Close your eyes for a moment and think back to a day when you woke up and instantly knew it would be a bad one. Maybe you felt heavy before you even left bed. The alarm clock rang and it wasn't just noise, it was a hammer pounding at your head. You dragged yourself up, spilled coffee on your shirt, snapped at someone you love, and everything seemed to go wrong. Now think of another day. You woke up with energy. Music sounded brighter, people seemed friendlier, and even the traffic felt bearable. The exact same world, but an entirely different experience. What was the difference? The circumstances outside didn't change much, but you were different. The way you felt, your emotions colored everything. This is what Tony Robbins wants us to see in chapter 2. If we don't learn to master our emotions, we will always be prisoners of circumstance. But when we do learn, the world becomes flexible, manageable, even joyful, no matter what's happening around us. Robbins begins with a bold statement. Nothing in life has meaning except the meaning you give it. Let that sink in. A problem at work isn't automatically devastating, it becomes devastating when you label it that way. A breakup isn't automatically the end of the world, it becomes that when you decide it is. The power lies in interpretation, and interpretation is emotional. He points out that most of us live as if emotions are uncontrollable weather systems. We think we wake up sunny or stormy depending on luck, but Robbins insists that emotions are not random, they follow patterns. They are produced by what you focus on, the language you use, and the way you move your body. This is revolutionary when you first hear it, because it means emotions aren't something you wait to change, they are something you do. I'll give you a personal example. I used to dread public speaking. Just the thought of standing in front of people made my stomach churn. I'd sit there waiting for my name to be called, heart racing, palms sweating. But then I remembered Robbins' teaching. Emotions come from physiology and focus, so I tried something new. Instead of slouching, I stood tall. Instead of shallow, shaky breaths, I took deep, powerful ones. And instead of repeating "I'm scared," I told myself "I'm excited." You know what happened? My body followed. The fear didn't vanish instantly, but it transformed into energy. I walked on stage not as a victim of nerves, but as someone riding a wave of adrenaline. That's what Robbins means by mastering emotions. He gives us 3 primary levers: physiology, the way you use your body. Change your posture, your breathing, your movement, and you'll shift how you feel. A depressed body slumps, eyes down, voice flat. Change those and the emotion changes with it. Focus what you put your attention on. Focus on what's wrong and you'll feel pain. Focus on what you can do, on what you're grateful for, and you'll feel possibility. Language, the words you use with yourself. Say "I'm devastated" and you'll sink deeper. Say "I'm challenged" and you'll see hope. Words carry emotional weight. These 3 levers are always in your control, which means your emotions are always in your control if you're willing to practice. One of Robbins' core messages here is that emotions are messages. They are signals pointing you towards something Instead of fighting them or denying them, you should listen and decode them. For example, fear is telling you to prepare, anger is telling you a boundary has been crossed, sadness is telling you that you've lost something important, frustration is telling you that your current approach isn't working. The problem is not the emotion itself, the problem is when we misinterpret it or stay stuck in it. If you treat fear as a sign of doom instead of a call to prepare, it paralyzes you. If you treat frustration as a reason to quit instead of a reason to try differently, you never grow. So Robbins teaches us to welcome emotions as teachers, not enemies. He also emphasizes repetition. The more you dwell on an emotion, the more you wire your brain to feel it again. Someone who constantly lives in resentment isn't unlucky. They've built resentment into their nervous system by practicing it daily. Likewise, people who seem naturally cheerful have built that muscle by returning to joy again and again until it becomes their default. This is both sobering and hopeful. Sobering because it means if you're living in negativity, you've trained yourself into it. Hopeful because it also means you can train yourself out. Here's where I pause to reflect. When I read this part, I thought about my own emotional patterns. I realized I had a habit of frustration. Whenever technology failed me or a plan didn't go smoothly, I would snap. I thought it was just the way I am, but Robbins made me see it wasn't who I was. It was what I had practiced. I had given frustration the steering wheel, so I tried a new practice. Whenever frustration bubbled up, I stopped, breathed, and asked, "What is this trying to tell me?" Often the answer was simple: I needed to slow down or I needed to try a new method. Over time, the frustration lost its grip. That's when I understood mastering emotions isn't about denial, it's about leadership. You become the leader of your inner world, not the follower. Robbins also draws attention to the fact that our society trains us poorly around emotions. We're taught to suppress them, to man up, to get over it, or on the flip side, to wallow in them endlessly. Neither works. Suppression creates explosions. Later, indulgence creates paralysis. The real path is acknowledgement followed by direction. Listen, then lead. He encourages building a menu of empowering emotions. Instead of letting fear, doubt, or rage dominate, why not practice gratitude, curiosity, determination, and love? These aren't abstract virtues, they're tools you can call on in any moment if you've trained yourself to access them. One story Robbins often shares is about athletes. Picture a runner at the start of a race. The nerves are electric, their body is buzzing. To some that feels like anxiety, to others it feels like excitement. Same physiology, different label. The emotion shifts entirely based on focus and language. This shows us that mastering emotions isn't about eliminating them but transforming them. The same energy that cripples one person fuels another. Now, let's ground this in everyday life. Imagine you come home from work exhausted. You're about to collapse on the couch, but instead you decide to change your state. You put on upbeat music. You stretch, jump, maybe dance a little. You smile, even if forced. Within minutes, your energy is back. What changed? Not the workload, not your boss, only your physiology and focus. Or picture an argument with a loved one. You could focus on their harsh words and spiral into anger. Or you could focus on the fact that this person cares enough to fight with you, which means they care at all. Suddenly, the anger softens into understanding. Again, the situation didn't change, your interpretation did. This is emotional mastery in action. But Robbins also warns us, don't expect perfection. Mastery doesn't mean you'll never feel negative emotions again. It means you'll recover faster. It means you'll recognize them sooner, redirect them quicker, and use them instead of being used by them. Think of a pilot flying through turbulence. The bumps don't disappear, but the pilot doesn't panic. They adjust the controls and keep the plane steady. That's what you become with practice, a skilled pilot of your emotional sky. At the heart of this chapter is a liberating idea. You are not your emotions, you are the one experiencing them. Too often we say, "I am angry," as if anger defines us. Robbins reminds us to shift the language. I feel anger right now. It's temporary, it's not your identity, and if It's temporary, you can change it. When I practiced this shift myself, I noticed a subtle but powerful change. Instead of saying I'm anxious, I began saying I'm feeling anxiety. That little word feeling put distance between me and the storm. Suddenly I wasn't drowning, I was observing, and if I was observing, I could choose what to do next. That's the freedom Robbins is handing us, the freedom to step back, observe, and lead our emotions instead of being led by them. So, Chapter 2 ends with an invitation. Robbins challenges us to take inventory of our emotional lives. Which emotions do we live in most often? Which ones do we want to cultivate, and what practices will help us shift? The truth is, your emotional life is the foundation of everything else. You can have money, success, recognition, but if you live in stress, fear, or bitterness, what good are they? On the flip side, you can face struggle and setbacks, but if you cultivate joy, resilience, and love, your life is rich no matter what. Mastering emotions then isn't a side skill, it's the core of living well. And here's my personal reflection. I believe Robbins is right when he says emotions are choices we rehearse, but I also believe this takes courage. It's easier to blame circumstances, to say, I feel bad because of them. It's harder to admit, I feel bad because I'm focusing wrong, speaking wrong, or moving wrong. Responsibility is heavy, but it's also freeing, because if you created the pattern, you can create a new one. That's the power of this chapter. It doesn't sugarcoat life, it doesn't promise a world without pain, but it gives you the tools to meet life with leadership. In the end, Robbins wants us to see that mastering emotions is really about mastering meaning. Change the meaning and you change the feeling, and you change the action and you change your life, and that is how you begin to awaken the giant within. By the way, if you're enjoying this summary, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Chapter 3, Beliefs and Values. Picture a traveler holding a map. The map is old, faded, maybe even inaccurate. The roads don't match reality anymore, no matter how determined the traveler is, no matter how hard they walk. If the map is wrong, they will always end up lost. This is how Tony Robbins describes beliefs. Beliefs are the maps by which we navigate life. They are invisible frameworks, often unconscious, that tell us what is possible and what is not, what we deserve and what we don't, who we are and who we are not. And here's the startling truth. Most of us never stop to examine whether our maps are even accurate. Think about it. Somewhere in your mind you carry beliefs like I'm good with people, or I'm bad at math, or I always screw things up, or I always find a way. Each of these acts as a compass. They either open possibilities or close them. Robbins argues that the greatest limit on human potential is not lack of resources, not lack of time, not lack of opportunity, but the prison of limiting beliefs. He shares a metaphor that struck me deeply. Beliefs are like the legs of a table. Imagine you want to hold up the surface of the table. Say the belief that I'm worthless, that's the surface. Underneath there are legs, supporting references. Maybe you remember failing an exam, being criticized by a teacher, rejected by a friend. Each memory is a leg. The more legs, the sturdier the table. But here's the catch. Those references are selective. They are stories you chose to highlight. And if you had chosen different stories, times when you succeeded, times when you were appreciated, you would have built an entirely different table. This means beliefs are not reality, they are interpretations of reality, and interpretations can change. I remember when I first grasped this, I had always believed I was bad at business. I told myself I was more of a creative person, not someone who could handle money or strategy. And sure enough, every time I tried something entrepreneurial, I would sabotage myself. Then I looked closer. That belief was just a table I had built from a few shaky legs, a failed side project, a math class I didn't enjoy, a comment someone once made about me not being practical. But were those really proof or just selective memories? The truth was I had also solved problems creatively, managed small budgets effectively, and helped friends brainstorm business ideas, but I had never counted those as legs because they didn't fit the story. Once I restructured the belief, I began acting differently, and action changed everything. That's what Robbins wants us to see. Beliefs are choices, not facts. He also points out that some beliefs are empowering, they act like rocket fuel. Beliefs like there is always a way or failure is just feedback or I'm responsible for my own happiness can propel us forward even when circumstances are grim. This is why Robbins challenges us to consciously choose our beliefs. If you're going to build tables anyway, why not build sturdy ones that hold up? Empowering surfaces, but he goes deeper beyond individual beliefs. He talks about values. Values are the emotional states we consider most important. They are the compass guiding our decisions. Some people value security above all, others value freedom, some value love, others achievement. Values are like the destination on the map. Beliefs are the roads you think will get you there. The problem arises when our values conflict. Imagine someone who values both success and comfort. The moment they push hard at work, they feel guilty for sacrificing rest. The moment they relax, they feel guilty for not chasing success. They live in constant tension. Or consider someone who values both honesty and harmony. They want to tell the truth, but they also want to avoid conflict. Every difficult conversation becomes torture. Robbins emphasizes to live powerfully, you must align your values clearly. Decide what comes first. Decide what matters most, otherwise you'll always be torn. When I read this, I realized my own hierarchy was a mess. I valued freedom and security equally, but those two often clashed. Whenever I took risks to gain freedom, I panicked about losing security. Whenever I clung to security, I felt trapped. Robbins' challenge pushed me to ask which comes first. For me, the answer became freedom. Security is important, but without freedom, I feel suffocated. Once I clarified that, my decisions became simpler. That's the power of knowing your values. Robbins also talks about moving away values versus moving toward values. Moving away values are things we want to avoid: pain, rejection, failure, humiliation. Moving toward values are things we desire: love, success, growth, contribution. Most people, Robbins says, are driven more by moving away values. They spend their lives avoiding pain rather than chasing joy. But the problem is, when you focus on what to avoid, you end up attracting it. If your primary value is avoiding rejection, you'll never take the risks required to build deep connections. If your primary value is avoiding failure, you'll never attempt the big moves that lead to success. So Robbins urges us to flip the script, make moving toward values dominant. Value growth over safety, value love over fear, value creation over protection. Here's a striking thought: every decision you've ever made was based on your values at that moment. If you valued comfort more than health, you ate the cake. If you valued progress more than fear, you took the leap. Change your values and you change the filter through which every decision passes. This is why Robbins says that clarifying your values is like resetting the compass of your life. Without it, you may work hard, achieve goals, even gain recognition, but feel strangely empty because you climbed a ladder only to find it leaned against the wrong wall. Another personal reflection: I once chased achievement without realizing it was my top value. I worked long hours, sought praise, hit milestones, but deep down I also valued connection. And because I hadn't ranked it clearly, I neglected relationships. The result: achievement tasted hollow. It wasn't until I restructured my values, putting connection above achievement, that life began to feel balanced. This is why Robbins presses so hard. Until you know what you truly value, you'll live in confusion. He doesn't stop there. He also asks us to look at the rules we attach to values. For example, if you value love but your rule is, I only feel loved if someone tells me every day in exactly the right words, you've set yourself up for misery. If you value success but your rule is, I must be the best in the world or it doesn't count, you'll never feel successful. Rules are the conditions you set for feeling emotions, and most people set rules that guarantee pain and deny pleasure. Robbins suggests designing rules that empower you. For example, change love's rule to I feel loved anytime I give love freely and anytime someone shows me kindness in any form, suddenly love is abundant. Or change success's rule to I feel Successful whenever I learn and grow, suddenly success is everywhere. This reframing doesn't mean lowering standards, it means aligning them with reality so you can experience the values you care about, rather than chasing them forever. As I think about it, this might be one of the most life-changing insights of the book. We often suffer not because life denies us but because our rules deny us. We've built cages out of impossible conditions. Robbins hands us the key: rewrite the rules. So chapter 3 leaves us with two intertwined truths. First, beliefs shape what's possible. If you believe you can, you find a way. If you believe you can't, you stop looking. Second, values shape what's important. They are the why behind every choice. Align them clearly and life gains coherence. To awaken the giant within you must update your map and clarify your compass. Build empowering beliefs. Choose uplifting values. Set rules that let you feel alive. Then watch as your life, once confusing, begins to align with power and purpose. For me, this chapter felt like cleaning a cluttered room. Suddenly I could see what was really there. Some beliefs I had been carrying for years weren't mine, they were hand-me-downs from family, culture, teachers. Some values I thought I cherished were actually borrowed. The process of questioning, of rewriting, felt like reclaiming ownership of my life, and that's what Robbins offers us. Ownership over the meaning we give, the beliefs we hold, the values we live by. Because if beliefs are maps and values are destinations, then once you align them consciously, you no longer wander aimlessly. You know where you're going and you know you have the right map to get there. Chapter 4: The Science of Conditioning. Have you ever tried to change a habit, really tried, only to find yourself slipping back into the old routine days or weeks later? Maybe it was quitting junk food, starting a workout plan, being more patient, or cutting down on social media. You promised yourself this time would be different, and maybe it was for a little while, but eventually the old pull returned and you fell back. Why is change so hard? Tony Robbins argues that it's not because we lack willpower or because we're weak or because we don't want it enough. It's because most of us don't understand how our brain actually creates and maintains habits. In Chapter 4, Robbins introduces what he calls neurosociative conditioning, NAC, a system for rewiring your brain so that lasting change finally becomes possible. He begins with a simple truth: human beings are driven by two forces, the need to avoid pain and the desire to gain pleasure. Everything you do, from brushing your teeth to building a career, is an attempt to avoid some kind of pain or to gain some kind of pleasure. The problem is many of our habits are wired backward. We link pleasure to things that hurt us long-term, like overeating or procrastinating, and we link pain to things that could help us, like exercise or saving money. So if you wonder why you keep doing something you know is bad for you, Robbins says the answer is simple: your brain associates more pleasure with doing it than with not doing it. And if you wonder why you resist something you know would be good for you, it's because your brain associates more pain with doing it than with skipping it. Change, therefore, is not about forcing yourself to be different, it's about rewiring your associations. Robbins tells the story of how people quit smoking. For some, it's enough to scare themselves with health facts, but for most, the statistics aren't enough. They already know cigarettes cause cancer. That knowledge doesn't break the habit. What breaks it is when they link massive pain to smoking itself. One man Robbins worked with decided to picture every cigarette as a nail in his coffin, each puff a hammer strike. Another associated cigarettes with the smell of burning flesh. They rewired the meaning of the act until smoking wasn't relief, it was death. Once that association burned into the nervous system, the desire collapsed. At the same time, they linked pleasure to being smoke-free, breathing easier, living longer, hugging their children without guilt. With both forces aligned, the change stuck. That's knack in action. So how does it work in practice? Robbins breaks it into steps. Step 1: decide what you really want. This seems obvious, but most people only know what they don't want. I don't want to be overweight, I don't want to be broke, but the brain needs a target. You must get crystal clear on what you want instead. I want a strong, energetic body. I want Financial freedom. Step 2. Link massive pain to the old behavior. This is where you dig deep. It's not enough to say eating junk food is bad. You must feel the pain. Imagine yourself sick, limited, missing out on life because of poor health. Make it vivid. Make it emotional until your brain screams never again. Step 3. Link massive pleasure to the new behavior. Visualize how good it will feel to wake up with energy, to feel confident in your clothes, to enjoy a long life. Get excited about it. Make it irresistible. Step 4. Interrupt the old pattern. Whenever the urge comes back, do something shocking to break the state. Robbins is famous for having people jump, clap, shout, or even do silly dances when they catch themselves sliding back. The brain needs a jolt to break the automatic loop. Step 5. Condition the new pattern. Repetition is key. You must rehearse the new behavior over and over until it becomes natural. Just as you once trained yourself into the old habit, you can train yourself into the new one. Step 6. Test it. Put yourself in situations where the old trigger would normally appear. See if the new association holds. If it doesn't, reinforce it again. If it does, celebrate. When I first tried knack, I applied it to procrastination. For years, I delayed important tasks until the last moment. Deadlines gave me adrenaline but also constant stress. Intellectually, I knew this was bad, but emotionally, my brain linked pleasure to procrastination, relief from work, and pain to starting early effort boredom, so I rewired it. I pictured the pain of procrastination, the anxiety, the all-nighters, the shame of letting people down. I made it visceral, tight chest, pounding heart, exhaustion. Then I pictured the pleasure of acting early, calm evenings, free weekends, pride in being dependable. At first it felt forced, but the more I rehearsed, the more natural it became. One day I sat down to work without even thinking. The old urge to delay had weakened over time. It nearly disappeared. That was knack working in my life. Robbins emphasizes that NASI isn't just about breaking bad habits, it's also about creating empowering ones. You can use it to cultivate confidence, discipline, gratitude, generosity. For example, if you want to become more grateful, you can link pleasure to moments of appreciation, writing them down, sharing them with others, and you can link pain to ingratitude, imagining how bitterness and envy corrode your relationships. Over time, your nervous system will start reaching for gratitude automatically. A key point Robbins makes is that this isn't just psychology, it's physiology. The brain has pathways that strengthen with repetition. Every time you connect pain or pleasure to something, you carve a groove. The more you fire it, the deeper the groove becomes. Eventually, it becomes automatic. Think of it like training a dog. If you reward a dog for sitting, it will sit more often. If you scold it for barking, it will bark less. Your brain works the same way, except in this case you are both the trainer and the dog. He also warns against the trap of shoulds. Many people say I should lose weight, I should save money, I should be more confident, but should doesn't change anything. It's weak, it's vague, it leaves the back door open. Robbins insists you must turn your shoulds into musts. That's when your brain takes it seriously. Knock is the tool that transforms should into must by attaching massive pain to an action and massive pleasure to action. One of my favorite parts of this chapter is Robbins' reminder that nay can be playful. It doesn't have to be grim. You can exaggerate associations to make them stick. If you're trying to stop biting your nails, imagine every nail you chew is dipped in poison. If you're trying to exercise more, blast music you love and make it a celebration. The sillier they more emotional, the more effective. Change doesn't happen by logic alone, it happens by emotion. Knack taps into that truth. As I reflect on this chapter, I think about how many of us blame ourselves for lack of discipline. We call ourselves lazy, weak, hopeless, but Robbins reframes it. The problem isn't you. The problem is your conditioning, and conditioning can be changed. That's a liberating thought. Imagine if every destructive habit you've struggled with could be rewired. Imagine if every empowering habit you've dreamed of could be built. Knack is the bridge. To close, Robbins offers a vision. He asks us to imagine our lives 10 years from now if we change nothing. Picture the pain, the regret, the opportunities lost. Then imagine your life 10 years from now if you apply NS, if you break the old chains and build new patterns. Picture the energy, the pride, the freedom. Which future do you want? The answer lies not in willpower, not in luck, but in conditioning. Condition yourself for success, and success becomes inevitable. Chapter 5, Mastering Finances, Money. It's one of those topics that makes people uncomfortable to talk about, yet it silently shapes so much of how we live. It influences where we sleep, what we eat, the choices we can make, and the dreams we dare to chase. Some people see money as freedom, others as stress. For some, it's a tool, for others, it's a chain. In this chapter, Tony Robbins makes a bold statement: if you don't learn to master money, money will end up mastering you. And mastery doesn't mean being the richest person in the world, it means being free. Free from fear, free from scarcity, free from the endless cycle of paycheck to paycheck. Robbins starts with a simple question: what does money mean to you? For some, it means security, for others, it means opportunity. Some see it as power, while others see it as evil. But here's the catch: whatever meaning you attach to money will shape how you interact with it. If you believe money is the root of all evil, you'll subconsciously push it away. If you believe money is power, you may chase it at all costs, even at the expense of happiness. He insists that money itself is neutral, it's just paper, just numbers on a screen. The meaning is what we give it, and if you want to master finances, you must first master the meaning you attach to money. Robbins then draws attention to a dangerous cultural trap. Many of us think more money equals more freedom. We chase bigger paychecks, fancier cars, larger houses. Yet how often do you hear about wealthy people who are miserable? How often do you see middle-class families drowning in debt despite earning decent incomes? The truth, Robbins says, is that money doesn't equal freedom unless you learn how to manage it. You can earn millions and still live in fear of losing it all. You can make modest income and still feel abundant if you master the flow. So, the goal isn't to get rich for the sake of riches. The goal is to achieve financial freedom, the point at which money works for you instead of you working for money. How do we get there? Robbins lays out principles, but he tells them through stories of people who turned their lives around by changing their financial beliefs and habits. One man grew up in poverty, believing he'd never escape. He thought wealth was for other people, but once he shifted his belief to "I can learn the skills to create wealth," everything changed. He didn't become a billionaire overnight, but he saved, invested, grew his knowledge. Within years, he built a stable, abundant life. That's the pattern. Change the belief, then change the behavior, then change the result. Robbins points to a force that quietly shapes fortunes: compound interest. He calls it one of the most powerful forces in the universe. Put simply, money grows not just on the original sum but on the growth itself. A dollar invested today, with enough time, multiplies into many. But the opposite is also true: debt compounds as well. If you keep borrowing and letting interest pile up, it snowballs until you're crushed. So mastery isn't about big flashy moves. It's about small, consistent actions that accumulate. Save a little, invest a little, day after day, and watch it grow. I'll pause here with a personal reflection. When I was younger, I thought investing was only for the rich. I believed you had to wait until you had extra money. But Robbins makes it clear: if you wait, you'll never have extra. You start with what you have, no matter how small. I remember setting aside a tiny portion of each paycheck, so small it felt almost silly. But years later, looking back, that small start had blossomed. It wasn't the amount, it was the habit. That's what Robbins drills in. Wealth is less about income, more about discipline. He also reminds us that earning more isn't the solution if you don't change your patterns. Many people, when they get a raise, simply expand their lifestyle. Bigger salary, bigger car, higher income, higher expenses. It's called lifestyle inflation. The result? Same stress, just fancier clothes. To truly master finances, you must break that cycle. Learn to live below your means, invest the difference, and let time do its work. It's not glamorous, but it's freedom. Another powerful point Robbins makes: money amplifies who you already are. If you're generous, money makes you more generous. If you're fearful, money makes you more fearful. If you're reckless, money makes you more reckless. So the key is not just building wealth but building character alongside it. He also explores the emotional side of finances. For many, money is tied to identity. A man who loses his job feels worthless not because he lost income but because he linked money with self-worth. Robbins warns us not to fall into this trap. You are not your bank account. Money is a tool, not a definition. Now let's talk about freedom. Robbins outlines different levels of financial freedom. Financial security. Your basic needs are covered by income that doesn't depend on your constant labor, like investments or savings. Financial independence. You can live your current lifestyle comfortably without working if you choose. Financial freedom. You can live the life of your dreams, pursuing what matters without money being a limitation. Most people never get past stage 1 because they never make the decision to master money. But Robbins insists anyone can rise through these levels if they start today, no matter how small. He encourages us to adopt the mindset of an investor rather than a consumer. Consumers chase instant gratification, the new gadget, the latest car. Investors delay gratification. They put money into assets that grow. One leads to endless hunger, the other to lasting abundance. And here's the paradox. Once you begin to invest and see your money grow, you actually feel richer than when you spend it because you're no longer chasing, you're building. Another story Robbins shares is about a woman buried in debt. She felt hopeless, ashamed, convinced she'd never climb out. Robbins had her reframe the situation. Instead of seeing debt as a monster, see it as a challenge, a game to beat. She created a plan. Cut expenses, increased income, attacked debt with intensity. Years later, she was debt-free and empowered. The point: mastery starts with psychology, not numbers. When I applied this, I started treating saving as a game. Every time I set money aside, I celebrated it, even if it was small. Instead of pain, I linked pleasure to saving. Suddenly, it wasn't sacrifice, it was victory. That's knack working on finances. Robbins also stresses the importance of contribution. He argues that true wealth isn't measured just by what you accumulate, but by what you give. Some of the happiest, wealthiest people are generous. They give not only money, but time, energy, care. Contribution creates meaning, and meaning creates fulfillment. Without it, even vast fortunes feel empty. So what's the formula? Robbins makes it clear. Decide to master money instead of letting it master you. Change the meaning you attach to money. See it as a tool for freedom, not fear. Build the habit of saving and investing, no matter how small. Avoid lifestyle inflation. Live below your means. Rewire your associations so that saving feels like pleasure and overspending feels like pain. And finally, remember that money is a means to an end, not the end itself. Here's my reflection. Many self-help books talk about dreams and passion, but Robbins grounds it. Passion without financial freedom often leads to frustration. You can't contribute fully if you're trapped in debt. You can't pursue your purpose freely if you're terrified of bills. Mastering finances doesn't mean becoming obsessed with money. It means clearing the space so that money no longer controls your choices. That's the true gift. Choice. The choice to spend time with family instead of working late. The choice to pursue art, travel, service, whatever lights you up without fear of lack. And that's why Robbins dedicates an entire chapter to finances, because awakening the giant within isn't just about emotions and beliefs, it's also about building practical freedom in the physical world. So chapter 5 ends with a challenge. Start now, not when you earn more, not when you feel ready. Begin today with whatever you have, because financial mastery isn't about a number, it's about a decision. And as we learned in Chapter 1, decisions shape destiny. Chapter 6, mastering relationships. Think for a moment about the moments that have defined your life. Were they times you got a promotion, bought something new, or won an award? Or were they the moments you connected deeply with someone, a friend, a lover, a parent, a mentor, when you strip everything else away? Robbins says the quality of your life equals the quality of your relationships. You can achieve great wealth Incredible success, personal mastery, but if your relationships are broken, life will still feel empty. On the other hand, you can go through hardships and challenges, but if you're surrounded by love, it becomes bearable. Beautiful. This is why Robbins dedicates an entire chapter to the art of mastering relationships. He begins with a truth many of us resist: we all crave connection. Some of us hide behind toughness, claiming we don't need anyone. Others settle for shallow interactions, but deep down, every human being longs for love, understanding, and belonging. It's built into our DNA. The problem is we're rarely taught how to build and sustain those connections. We're given fairy tales about romance but not the skills to nurture it. We're encouraged to chase independence but not the tools for interdependence. So relationships become sources of frustration as often as joy. Robbins' mission here is to show us that mastery in relationships is possible and essential. The first principle he shares is deceptively simple: relationships thrive when you focus on giving more than getting. Think of a time when you were with someone who always demanded, "What about me? What are you doing for me? How long?" Before resentment grew. Now think of someone who always asked, "How can I support you? How can I love you better?" That energy changes everything. Robbins argues that too many relationships fail because both people are waiting to receive instead of racing to give. But when both commit to giving, the relationship flourishes. He tells a story of a couple on the brink of divorce. They had been fighting for years, each blaming the other. Robbins asked them a radical question: what would happen if you focused only on meeting your partner's needs for the next 30 days without expecting anything in return? At first they resisted. It sounded unfair, but eventually they tried, and slowly the walls came down. Acts of kindness replaced attacks. Gratitude replaced suspicion. Within weeks their marriage transformed. The lesson: love grows when we stop keeping score, but giving doesn't mean losing yourself. Robbins emphasizes that a strong relationship begins with a strong self. If you don't love and respect yourself, you'll constantly seek validation from others, draining the relationship. Mastery means bringing your whole, empowered self to the connection so you can give from abundance, not from emptiness. The next key is communication. Robbins calls it the lifeblood of relationships, yet so many of us are poor communicators. We assume our partner should just know what we want. We expect mind reading. We drop hints instead of speaking plainly. And when we're hurt, we lash out instead of opening up. Robbins insists that communication must be direct, honest, and above all, compassionate. The goal is not to win an argument, it's to understand and be understood. One practical tool he shares is to shift from blame to expression. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," try, "I feel unheard when this happens." Instead of "You're always late," say, "I feel unimportant when I'm waiting." The difference may sound small, but emotionally it's huge. One attacks the other invites. I'll pause here with my own story. I once struggled in a friendship because I felt neglected. I almost ended it, convinced the other person didn't care. But when I tried Robbins' approach, I told them, "I miss you when we don't connect. Our friendship matters a lot to me." Their reaction surprised me. They had no idea I felt that way. They weren't neglecting me, they were overwhelmed in their own life. That one honest conversation saved the friendship. It reminded me that communication isn't just about speaking, it's about clarifying the meaning we give to events, and often the meaning we assume is wrong. Robbins also dives into the differences between men and women. Though he admits these are general patterns rather than strict rules, he points out that men often seek respect and appreciation, while women often seek love and connection. When these needs are unmet, frustration grows. But when we understand and honor each other's deepest needs, relationships deepen. Whether you agree with his specific gender distinctions or not, the principle stands: know what your partner values most and prioritize it. Don't assume they value what you value. Learn their language of love. Another cornerstone of mastering relationships is managing expectations. Many relationships crumble not because of betrayal or conflict, but because of unmet, unspoken expectations. You expect Your partner to call at a certain time, react a certain way, share your priorities. When they don't, you feel hurt even though you never communicated the expectation in the first place. Robbins advises us to trade expectations for appreciation. Instead of dwelling on what your partner didn't do, notice and celebrate what they do. Gratitude softens hearts, entitlement hardens them. He also talks about the role of passion. Early in relationships, passion is easy. It's fueled by novelty, excitement, discovery, but over time, routine sets in. Many couples mistake fading passion for fading love. Robbins argues that passion can be rekindled if you make it a priority. That means bringing playfulness back, flirting, surprising, laughing together. It means keeping curiosity alive, asking questions, exploring dreams, refusing to let the relationship stagnate. And it means physical connection, touch, affection, intimacy, because our bodies are gateways to our hearts. Passion isn't lost, it's neglected, and like a fire, it must be fed. Now let's look beyond romance. Robbins reminds us that relationships include family, friends, colleagues. Mastering these also comes down to the same principles: give more than you expect, communicate with honesty, and appreciate instead of demand. But he adds another layer. Sometimes mastery means letting go. Not every relationship is meant to last. Some are toxic, draining, abusive. Robbins urges us to recognize when a connection is destructive and to have the courage to step away. Mastery isn't clinging to everything, it's choosing wisely who belongs in your circle. When I reflect on this, I think of how often we stay in harmful relationships out of fear of being alone, fear of conflict, fear of judgment. But Robbins' challenge is clear: if a relationship consistently destroys your spirit, you owe it to yourself to move on. Love should lift, not crush. One of the most moving parts of this chapter is Robbins' belief that relationships are ultimately about meaning, success, achievements, possessions. None of them matter if you have no one to share them with. The moments that stay with us at the end of life are not the promotions but the laughter at the dinner table, the hugs after long days, the conversations that made us feel seen. And so, to awaken the giant within, you must awaken love within. Not just romantic love, but love as a way of being, because when your relationships thrive, everything else aligns. So how do we practice mastery in relationships? Robbins sums it up: bring your best self, not your needy self. Give more than you expect. Communicate honestly and compassionately. Replace expectations with appreciation. Keep passion alive through play, curiosity, and touch. Choose relationships that uplift and release those that destroy. Here's my final reflection: I think we often underestimate how much relationships shape us. We imagine ourselves as independent, self-contained, but the truth is we are mirrors. We grow in the presence of others, or we shrink. Mastering relationships isn't about controlling people, it's about choosing love as a guiding principle over and over again. And perhaps the most radical idea Robbins shares is this: relationships are not about what you get, they're about what you become. In loving fully, you become more. In giving freely, you expand. That's the real mastery. Chapter 7: Living with Purpose. Imagine waking up tomorrow with no alarm, no obligations, no one telling you what to do. At first, it might feel like freedom, but then a question would echo in your mind: what now? What should you spend your time on? Where should your energy go? Most people drift through life answering that question day by day, moment by moment, chasing whatever feels urgent or whatever others demand. They go to work, pay the bills, entertain themselves, and repeat. And then years later, they wonder why they feel empty, why something is missing. In this final chapter, Tony Robbins makes his message clear: a truly awakened life is not just about mastering decisions, emotions, beliefs, finances, or relationships. It's about having a purpose bigger than yourself. Robbins begins by pointing out that success without purpose is the ultimate failure. He shares the story of celebrities and business leaders who seem to have everything: wealth, fame, influence, yet fall into depression or self-destruction. Why? Because their lives lack meaning. Purpose, he explains, is what gives context to all other achievements. Without it, money is just paper, goals are just check marks. And relationships feel shallow. With it, every hardship becomes bearable, every victory becomes richer, every day becomes alive. So what exactly is purpose? Robbins describes it as a compelling vision of the future, a reason for being that pulls you forward. Purpose is not just something you choose, it's something you uncover by listening deeply to what moves you, excites you, enrages you, or inspires you. And purpose is always about more than just you. If your purpose is only personal pleasure or comfort, it won't sustain you. True purpose touches others, it contributes, it leaves. He shares a powerful metaphor. Imagine your life as a book. Every day you write a new page. Without purpose, the story is random, confusing, forgettable. With purpose, every page contributes to a coherent plot. The ups and downs make sense because they serve the larger story. That's why Robbins insists discovering your purpose is not optional, it's essential. How do you find it? He offers guiding questions. What do you care about most deeply? What pain in the world moves you the most? What would you fight for even if you were tired, broke, or scared? What activities make you lose track of time because you're so engaged? Your answers point toward your purpose. I remember when I first wrestled with these questions. At the time, I thought my purpose was achievement. I wanted recognition, but when I dug deeper, I realized recognition was just a proxy for something else. The desire to inspire others, to help them believe in themselves. That was my true current. Once I saw it, everything clicked. Work became more meaningful, even the small tasks, because they connected to something bigger. That's the effect of purpose. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. Robbins also emphasizes that purpose doesn't have to be grandiose. You don't need to save the world, cure cancer, or become president. Purpose can be raising children with love, bringing joy through art, solving problems in your community, or simply living as an example of kindness. What matters is not the size of the stage but the depth of the commitment. He also addresses a common fear: what if I choose the wrong purpose? Robbins reassures us purpose is not a prison sentence. It can evolve. What matters is choosing something that energizes you. Now, as you grow, your purpose may expand. That's natural. The worst mistake is not picking the wrong purpose, it's drifting without one. To illustrate, he shares stories of ordinary people who found extraordinary meaning. A teacher who dedicated her life to inspiring underprivileged children, a doctor who left a high-paying job to serve in remote villages, a single parent who poured love into raising kids who would later thrive and give back to the world. None of them made global headlines, but all of them lived purposeful lives, and in doing so awakened the giant within. Robbins also links purpose to resilience. When you have a clear why, you can endure almost anyhow. He quotes the spirit of Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of concentration camps by holding on to a sense of purpose, helping others, and envisioning a future beyond the pain. Without purpose, suffering crushes us. With purpose, suffering shapes us. Another practical aspect Robbins covers is setting goals that align with purpose. Goals without purpose are empty. Purpose without goals is vague. Together they create momentum. So he urges us to create goals that are not just about acquisition but about contribution. Instead of I want to earn $1 million, think I want to use wealth to create freedom and contribute to causes I care about. Instead of I want to be famous, think I want to share ideas that uplift millions. When goals align with purpose, motivation becomes natural. You no longer have to push yourself, you're pulled forward by vision. I experienced this shift myself. For years, I set goals around numbers, income targets, project completions, milestones. I achieved many but often felt flat after hitting them. Once I connected goals to purpose, impact, inspiration, service, they felt different. Every milestone became fuel, not just a checkbox. I stopped asking what do I want to get and started asking what do I want to give. That's when work became play. Robbins also reminds us that purpose brings joy in the present, not just the future. Too many people think when I fulfill my purpose, then I'll be happy. But purpose is not a destination, it's a direction. You live it every day in the way you speak, act, and love. He challenges us to embody purpose now. If your purpose is kindness, show it today. If it's creativity, create something today. If it's service, serve today. Purpose is not later, it's now. Another layer Robbins adds is spirituality, not necessarily religion, but the sense that life is bigger than our individual existence. He suggests that true purpose connects us to something greater, humanity, nature, God, the universe, however you define it. Without that sense of connection, purpose risks becoming self-centered. With it, purpose becomes transcendent, and then comes his final challenge. Ask yourself how you want to be remembered. If your life ended tomorrow, what story would you leave behind? Would it be one of survival or one of service? Would it be one of chasing comfort or one of pursuing meaning? The answer to that question is your compass. As I reflect on this chapter, I think of a conversation I once had with an elderly man in a hospital. He was nearing the end of his life. He didn't talk about the money he made or the trophies he won. He talked about his family, the friends he loved, the small moments of laughter. That was his purpose, and he knew it. It struck me then, purpose doesn't have to be complicated, it has to be true. So chapter 7 leaves us with the final piece of awakening the giant within. Live with purpose, because once you do, every decision, every belief, every habit, every relationship, every dollar becomes aligned with something greater. Life stops being a series of random events and becomes a mission, and that mission doesn't just awaken you, it awakens everyone around you. And so, we've walked through Tony Robbins' powerful reminder that your life is shaped not by chance, but by choice, by the decisions you make, the emotions you master, the beliefs you hold, the rules you live by, the way you handle money, the love you give and receive, and the purpose that pulls you forward. The truth is, you already have everything you need inside of you. Not tomorrow, not someday, right now. The giant within you is real, and it's waiting for you to wake it up. But here's the thing, books don't change lives, actions do. This story only matters if you take the first step today. Make that decision you've been putting off, change that habit you've been clinging to, speak that truth you've been afraid to voice, because your destiny is being shaped this very moment. So let me ask you, will you let the giant keep sleeping, or will you finally rise and live the life you were made for? If this message struck a chord, don't just close the book and move on, carry it with you. Share it, talk about it, and keep reminding yourself the power is in your hands. Your life is your story, and the next chapter hasn't been written yet, so write it boldly. Write it with purpose, write it as the giant you truly are. If you found value in this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who needs this wisdom.